for joining us here today. Now, over the coming weeks, the Fitness Business Podcast is supporting you through COVID-19 crisis with a series of 20-minute special video interviews. Today's interview is brought to you by our friends at Tribe Team Training. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome along our very special guest today. He's the fitness and membership consultant to JCCs of America, and he was recently our guest on episode 278. Jason Stowell, welcome along.
Thank you. It's amazing to be back. Thank you.
Now, you have created a 3-step guide to running effective team meetings online. Do you want to talk us through those 3 steps?
Absolutely. So as you can imagine, we've all had to innovate rapidly through this disruption that we call COVID-19. Most of us knew that there were solutions out there for taking our meetings online, but a lot of us didn't start mobilizing on that until necessity kind of dictated, right? So recently I created this 3-step guide to help businesses, help other agencies get online and to manage their workforce virtually. So before we can get in that 3-step guide, there are 3 prerequisites that I'm going to ask for everyone to consider putting in place prior to the implementation of that system, okay? So the first thing you need to do is you got to make sure you have established a virtual shared workspace, right? So everyone should be able to go, regardless if your team is 5 people or 5,000 people, to get shared documents. It could be Google Drive. Most companies already have some type of intranet, but some type of virtual workspace, right? The second tip there, as a prerequisite, is you have to already have created an account and hosted a virtual meeting, right? So some of those potential offerings would be like GoToMeeting, Microsoft Live Meetings, WebEx. My preference is Zoom, and a lot of what I'm going to talk about today is going to be Zoom related, but they're all fairly similar. And then the third piece is, and I can't overstate this enough, is do not assume your staff knows how to work effectively from home. Okay, we come home, we think, okay, we're going to get on the computer, I got my notes here, but there's so much that has to go into that. So for example, make sure that your staff sets a dedicated work area where they can conduct it, keep it clean, keep it clear, keep it work related only. You should set expectations for them around hours, when they should be available for calls and texts and things like this. And just 2 personal recommendations is, 1, make sure you keep a morning ritual. You know, everyone's been disrupted, and I know I had my process for waking up and doing my thing before I got to work, and now it's like, oh my gosh, my 2 realities, my personal and professional, are crashing together. So establish a new morning ritual. And the second one is make sure you set some basic expectations with your family, right? Just because I'm at home and I'm working in my pajamas doesn't necessarily mean I'm available to clean the thing. I don't want to, I don't get in trouble, so we'll say clean the thing, right? All right, so those are the 3 prerequisites I'm going to ask that you do, right? So number 1, you want to have an effective advanced scheduling guide, okay? So meetings in your box usually happen, like let's say you met with your Group X director on Mondays at 1. You should continue to meet with your Group X director Mondays at 1, right? You should set up recurring touch bases with your employees, and even a little bit more frequently now. So for example, I would meet with my personal training director on Fridays at noon. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a 15 minutes on Monday, 15 minutes on Wednesday, and a half hour on Friday to continue to touch bases, right? So set up advanced scheduling with all of your staff. You also want to set up an all-skate meeting once a week. So again, it could be Monday to set the pace, could be Friday to summarize and set next week's agenda, but have everyone get together into this virtual meeting once a week as well. And the last piece of that is you want to make sure you stick to goals and deadlines. It's even more important now. Right? So I'm sure everyone who manages staff knows some staff they don't need micromanage, they can just get it done and they'll go. And then other staff need very clear outlines, right? Even more now. So as soon as we get off this call, you go to make lunch, you do all the things, the dog needs out of the yard, right? And so life starts to take over, even more so now than it was before. So it's very important to establish that every single goal you give, that these are your goals and these are your deadlines for expectations, right? So that's step 1, effective scheduling guide. The second one here is you want to make sure you set clear agenda and expectations around the content and the actionables coming out of these meetings, right? So this is going to be a little deeper one, so I'm going to go a little bit longer on this piece here, right? So some of my meetings are just one-on-one. Some of my meetings are with groups of 5 to 10, but we have meetings when we go to the agency level, or excuse me, the national level, of almost 100 people, right? The last meeting I was a part of had 132 individuals on there, right? So when you get to structure that big, you need to have very streamlined processes and expectations. So I recommend with meetings above 25 people that you establish the role of the speaker and the presenter. And you also want a moderator, right? The moderator is going to take the meeting notes. They're going to read questions that are written into the chat. They may even read the questions out loud when you get to that portion of the agenda, which we'll talk to, right? So for larger meetings, make sure you have a moderator established as well. And I recommend that you rotate that role. People tend to generally judge how good a meeting was by how much they participated in a meeting. So rotate it. Don't have the same person. I know that Nancy might be the best person for getting the best notes, but that's not what this is about. This is about engagement with our staff virtually, right?
Jason, I'm going to jump in. Sorry to interrupt you. I'm going to jump in and just ask you a super quick question because I know it might have been on some people's minds. What platform did you use to run a successful meeting with 130 participants?
It was, Zoom.
It was Zoom? It was a paid Zoom account?
Correct. That's right. Yes,
excellent. I'm fascinated to hear that because I think, and I'm so excited that we're going into this detail because I think a lot of people would be nervous to be part of such a large scale meeting. So I won't interrupt anymore. You were just talking about the importance of mixing up the moderator from meeting to meeting. So back to you.
So I think to your point, I'm a big believer in structure, right? So predictable systems give you predictable results. So whether I have a meeting of 5 people, 50 people, 5,000 people, as long as everyone has a very clear set of rules and expectations, a code of conduct, which we're going to talk about here, as well as an outlined agenda of how they're going to participate and what their follow-throughs are going to be after, you can manage meetings enormously, right? And we're going to go a little deeper into that in a second here with when you get to those larger meetings, how are you going to make sure that this doesn't just turn into everyone speaking over each other, right? So in addition to establishing the rules, right, the presenter, the speaker, and the moderator, you want to have a code of conduct beforehand. So everyone should know before meetings, right? They want to arrive 2 minutes early. You should have an established dress code. Do you want them to dress up for the meetings, or is it going to be dressed down? Is pajamas okay? You know, we've all seen the people go into the bathroom with the Zoom calls, right? It's just, you know, we're all learning, right? It's really interesting time. I usually recommend that, especially on Zoom, if you want to, everyone's defaulted to mute. If you want to speak, there's a little raise your hand function. Highly recommend that you tell staff that don't just unmute and speak. Put the raise your hand piece. Let this presenter or the moderator pick you. Okay, Jason, please. That way you're not all talking over each other. Or with the really large groups, you want to chat.
Where's the raise your hand function?
Oh, in Zoom? It's,
yeah.
So, yeah, it's down here somewhere.
See, I've got reaction, but okay. So
I'm using my free account. That's the problem.
I was just about to say, in the interest of transparency, we're recording this on a free account.
Tools.
So so let's just clarify. So the hands up, want to ask a question function is in the paid version of Zoom.
Correct. So if you don't have that, yeah. If you don't have that, then the larger piece, what I was going to do, is you just type your question into chat, and then let the moderator or the presenter call on you. So instead of just unmuting and going, what you'll say, right? You'll just say, "Hey, I have a question, Jason. When you get a second," and then I will call upon that person, right? So the code of conduct dictates: don't just speak up, please. Let's not talk over each other. Either raise your hand on the paid accounts or on the free one. Make sure you type into the chat. Okay. So again, under number 2, with that clear agenda and expectations, you got your virtual meeting of conduct. You've got your 2 roles established, and then you want to have an agenda, an advanced agenda, right? And so a good agenda for a virtual meeting should have the key talking points. It should have like your meeting structure, for example, when, who, how long, what are they going to discuss on each talking point, right? Am I going to speak to this and the CFO is going to speak to that? You should have an advanced list of who's going to be on the call so everyone knows exactly who's going to be there and participating, right? What each team member is responsible for bringing to the meeting, and any relevant documents, files should be disseminated beforehand, right? You don't want to be on the meeting and find out that everyone doesn't have the agenda beforehand. The last piece for this number 2 is going to be these online meeting follow-ups. I'm a big believer, and I actually learned this from you from one of your sessions I went to at Athletic Business, was that you shouldn't take any meetings unless you have a very clear agenda and expected outcomes, right? Otherwise, don't put it on your schedule. So for our online meetings, I always expect follow-ups with deliverables and next steps. So you should never have a meeting without clear next steps. Who's responsible for following up with what? When are these deliverables going to be due? And when's the next meeting that we're going to check in? I'll see you again on Wednesday at blah, 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 right? So that's for the agendas. And then the third piece is the last one here for effective virtual meetings is you want to set some virtual meetings default settings, right? So there's lots of different options. And again, I'm going to speak to Zoom specifically. I don't know all the ones out there, right? But I like to have everyone just muted upon entry, right? I don't want, if again, when you get into these larger meetings with 100 plus people, you don't want dogs barking, and you can imagine how chaotic this can be, right? So start default to mute, please. The second one is always, always, always start with the video on as default, right? So we need to humanize these meetings. There's a study in Harvard that just shows when people can see each other with video, they just feel more engaged. They feel like they're part of the process as opposed to audio alone. So make sure you start with video as a default. And then I'm personally a fan of allow screen sharing. Again, occasionally I'm going to go through something and I'm going to want to share it with them. And if it's not on by default, it becomes very challenging to get there. Now for the larger meetings, I disable the play sound when participants come and go. So you can have it come on like ding, Jason just showed up, Chantel just showed up, right? Again, once you get over a few people, it becomes disorienting. And then I also do enable private chat on the larger meetings. Now, when you have organizations that are, again, our default organization in Pittsburgh here can be meetings from 20 to 50 people. Occasionally when the CEO is talking, I'm going to want to ask my direct supervisor a question, like, hey, should we talk about this? And I need to be able to private chat that person as opposed to going to my text messages, okay? So I like to enable private chat. Now, if this is an educational sales training, again, now this is for Zoom paid, but you can enable breakout rooms. Huge fan of breakout rooms, and a really good reason why you should. I'm doing a Zoom commercial. Another good reason you should consider that.
So we're going to send this to Zoom afterwards and see if they buy some advertising.
Yeah, they have to at this point, right?
Brilliant,
breakout
brilliant.
rooms
Keep going.
are this genius piece. Yeah, I just swear to God they didn't pay me. I swear I did. But these breakout rooms are awesome. So let's say weekly right now with the association, we'll have anywhere from 80 to 150 professionals on the call, and it'll be content driven about either best practices on how you're handling the closure or what you're looking at for legalities or reopenings and things like this. And it's hard in a room that's 100 people big to really get to some substantial content. So about 15 minutes in the meeting, we'll push groups of 6 to 7 people that they can discuss best practices about 15 minutes. And then we come back to the larger meeting, we bring the breakout rooms back in, we can ask, hey, so who had a great idea? Who heard something from somebody else? A lot of people feel selfish about sharing their own idea. They have this egocentric, like, I don't want to share. But somebody else will say, oh, well, Jacksonville's doing this awesome yada, 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 right? And what we found is by using these breakout rooms, we're able to like pull out just really strong content that everyone can take back to their clubs, their health clubs, their agencies, whatever it be, and utilize. I said before in our last call, none of us are as smart as all of us. And so if we can create this brain trust, this mastermind, 100 individuals go into these smaller groups, they boil out the best topics and bring it back, we can all be better from that. So for the bigger educational ones, breakout rooms are huge, right? So those are my 3 steps.
Absolutely phenomenal, Jason. I'm so excited about all of that. And I have to apologize because I think just inadvertently, I straight away broke the code of conduct because I didn't put my hand up and I didn't private message you. I just jumped right in. But, but I'm learning.
So.
I'm learning.
Perfect. That's no problem.
So quick question, and it's getting into, I guess, a bit more deeper technical stuff. Those breakout rooms, I think, is an area of Zoom that probably a lot of people haven't yet explored. For anyone that does want to give that a go, how do you allocate who goes into which breakout room? Like, how do you technically grab those people and put them into that breakout room? And those people, do you do it before the meeting actually starts, or can you do it on the fly as you're having the meeting?
So it's an and scenario. You can do either. The only way you can assign, let's say you have, 150 clubs are joining this call. Of those 150 clubs, 50 of them don't have a pool. right? So you know that you want to talk about aquatics potentially on this call, and the people that don't have the pool aren't going to get as much. So if you know the list that's coming in beforehand, you can set, I want Chantel, Jason, Justin to be in group A. I want everyone who does have a pool to be in group B, right? And you can make these breakout rooms as big or as small as you want. So you can set that as long as you do it in advance. Now, if you don't do it in advance, you can still do it. You just have to set it randomly. You literally set the size of the room and just boom, and it randomizes. So the answer is it's either or.
That's awesome. Okay. So from your experience, Jason, in applying those 3 steps that you talked about to our meetings, what type of feedback have you had from team members as a result of, I guess, approaching these Zoom meetings with, or these online meetings with such clear boundaries and clarification and agendas? What type of feedback are people giving you around being part of meetings of this nature?
It's new for a lot of us. You know, there was that uncomfortable first week. I don't know where in Australia necessarily the shutdown and stay-at-home orders happened, but we've been doing this about 3 weeks now, so we're becoming seasoned pros at this. Structure is always beneficial because it gives kind of like a clear line of expectation ahead of time. So again, that people aren't talking over. So we're able to cover more content. We're able to engage more, leave more time at the end for people to ask questions if they'd like, by applying a clear timeline of expectations. So if anything, we're much more effective and much more confident in how we're going to conduct these things in the future. Again, because everyone just kind of knows what to expect ahead of time, as opposed to let's get on at 5 and Jason wants to talk about something.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. I'm really excited because I think that a lot of us kind of dived into this online meeting environment super quickly just because we had to. And we kind of take for granted that we need to be very structured around these things. We need to really think about how they run in order for these meetings to be as effective as they possibly can be. So, Jason, let's wrap all of this up into our Keep Me Fit Bizpiration for today. And do you want to just leave us with your number 1 tip for using an online video platform for our team meetings?
So this is a tip that's going to be for, I don't care if you're at the bottom of the chain or you're the CEO of the company. Make sure you're present. Do not multitask. It is going to be so hard to not check your email, type a message, search the web while John Doe is speaking, because you know you're probably not going to get called on, but you want to be present. I got a book recommendation, right? Essential NLP. I believe it's Amanda Vickers. And what she spoke about, what NLP speaks about generally, is that there really is no multitasking. It's just this rapid switch back and forth of your attention, which really just diminishes your ability to do anything well. And so I know, especially in the beginning, it's hard to get there, but if you're on a meeting with somebody, do your best to be present. Do not multitask. That's my biggest tip.
Hang on. I'm just new at Zoom, so I had to unmute myself. So
You're doing great. You're doing great.
Just kidding. Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that point up because I've heard multiple studies that talk about that we need to avoid trying to do many things at once. Multitasking is a myth, and just focusing on that one thing. And I know it's hard. It's super hard to get used to that, especially with so many distractions, because most of the time we are, we get so used to having the television on and being on our phone, right? So it's just a habit that we get into. So I couldn't agree more. Make sure that you are present in that meeting, focusing on what's being said so that you do get the most out of it. So Jason, thank you so much. It's been so much fun catching up with you. Thank you for your super practical advice around online team meetings. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I know that there are tips in there that will help everyone out there. So a huge thank you so much to you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. It's awesome. Always awesome.
Now, before we wrap up for today, I also want to say a huge thank you to our friends at Gym Sales. Thank you so much for all of your ongoing support. And that concludes today's video broadcast. And I just want to remind everyone, if you don't know, we are creating a full series of COVID-19 support videos for fitness business operators. So all you need to do to find that library of videos, which is building every single day, mind you, just go to fitnessbusinesspodcast.com/COVID-19, the number 19 - videos. That is all for today from Jason and me. That is it. Have a brilliant day, guys, and have a great week.